All right, howdy folks, welcome. It's 6:02 local time here in beautiful Bali. We've had a little bit of rain, but we've got some die-hard people here in the room with us for the very last installment of Bitcoin Filter for 2014, live here at Ubud Co-working Space. We're going to kick things off next year, but I don't know exactly when, so we're going to make the most of tonight. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me just share my screen here. There we go. This is the Bitcoins in Bali group, and this is where we post every week, have our online discussion. And for the next few weeks, this is going to be the only place where we can have our discussion. So I hope you guys will continue to post great stuff here, and we can just see you online, see you in the comments. And like I said, we'll kick things back off again next year. But until then, we'll see you here at the Bitcoins in Bali group. Bitcoin Filter 33. This is the last one of the year, folks. All right. Take a look at the price. 337. You can see we took a little dip in the last 24 hours. We were right up around 350. We got a little bump earlier in the week from some news from Microsoft, which we'll talk about. But we're down another 3.5% this week, and we were down 7% last week. So the tumble continues.
Good times buy. Good times buy. Bye.
Yes, this is your buying opportunity, of course. Yeah. Buy low, sell high, right? Hopefully nobody's panicking and.
What's the dip attributable to?
Pardon me?
What's the latest dip attributable to?
The latest dip. What's it attributed to? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit. There's a global market for Bitcoin, so you never really know why there's especially within a 24-hour period, why there's a dip or a spike. There's an overall trend of more and more businesses accepting Bitcoin, which seems like it would be good news for the price, but actually a lot of times those merchants automatically turn those Bitcoins into fiat currency, which creates downward price pressure on Bitcoin. We had some major merchants announced this week, so if they started buying Bitcoins and those Bitcoins were then released on the open market, it can actually push the price down. But I don't know if that's the case here. This could just be somebody manipulating a thin market overnight. It's middle of the night in America, so someone can get on a thin market and push it around within a short period of time if they want to.
I know why.
Yeah?
2 words. Silver pants.
Silver pants, yes. We'll get to that in a moment. Yeah. Silver pants. You will understand the significance of silver pants. Hello, Vinny.
Oh goodness.
Hello, Manu.
I found this girl walking around out on the street saying, "Where's the Bitcoin filter?" It's like, "Where's Bitcoin filter? I've lost it. I need to find my way back."
Oh. For those of you guys listening in, we've got Vinny in the room. Manu too has joined us. Welcome, guys.
Christmas episode.
Yes, final meeting of the year. How apropos.
Can we get presents?
Yes, you get Bitcoins for only $337 a piece. It's the holiday price. Yeah, it's pandemonium here.
Yeah, what are we on, Crisis Deck or something? I've been watching it all day going, no!
Yeah, look at this.
My money!
Yes.
Griff, where are you? I need to sell. Actually, I really do need to sell some later. I'm here for you. Oh, beautiful. Always fun, Griff.
Can you put it against the pound?
You'd like to see it against the we've had a request here for the British pound, 215. Are you from the UK?
No, Australia. Because everything's been, the US has been strengthening its everything, so I was just wondering the effect on Bitcoin.
Yeah,
they do straight exchanges. I mean, I don't think does this website actually.
No, it does. This is actually one of the better ones for that kind of thing. Instead of just doing a straight conversion from USD, they take information from the exchanges around the world, including the Indonesian exchange. But in any case, yeah, you're right. The U.S. dollar has been stronger lately. The U.S. dollar is no longer being printed by the Federal Reserve. That ended back in October, and it has resulted in a stronger dollar versus other currencies and commodities, especially the Indonesian rupiah. We're approaching 13,000, which is the highest it's ever been against the dollar. So I believe so. That's what someone told me, but I haven't verified
So
it
the
myself.
quantitative easing has stopped.
The quantitative easing
And
has
is
stopped.
do they intend to keep it stopped?
They intend to keep it stopped, but it's unclear what's going to happen to the other things that the politicians in the United States care about.
What else? What else is influencing this scenario?
Well, I mean, we haven't had a catastrophe yet, but we've been printing money to beat the band. $3 trillion in new money since 2008, and also interest rates have been at virtually zero. Bank-to-bank rate has been virtually zero since that time as well. The Federal Reserve has a couple of mandates. They need to keep inflation under control and keep employment at full employment. Those are their two mandates. We haven't seen that happen as a result of their monetary policies, but they can't print money forever, so they are stopping.
When did that kick in?
In October.
When was the last time they had stopped printing money before that? Was this like a monumental thing?
Let me see if I talk about this graph a lot. Let me pull it up for you. Why not? We're doing things on the fly here.
I mean, it went crazy in 2000. The bailout and all that.
Yeah, it's been like basically standardized until 2008, and then
I can show you this graph here that we've talked about it many times. A graph produced by the Federal Reserve themselves. This is what they are doing with the money supply. I'll put it right here in this tab for us. This is from the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank. They do they have a lot of transparency around the data that the Federal Reserve collects, and they graph their own policy decisions. But you can see over the course of my lifetime, they were very good stewards of the value of the dollar with the predictable rate over decades. Probably your little brother could probably pick the anomaly here, beginning in 2008 when they basically started printing money.
It's insane.
yeah, it is insane.
And you can see here's where the stop. See how they're pulling back here.
Oh yeah.
It's
When you say they've
Just
we've-
going back.
Printing
just
money
a
that
little.
means that they've like literally shut it down, or they're just going back to an average.
well, this is the base money supply, right? So this is simply the money that they make available to the primary dealers, which are the banks that have a relationship with the Federal Reserve, and then those primary dealers then loan that money out to all of the other banks, and then those banks build up their reserves and then loan out at least a 9-to-1 ratio on the reserves that they maintain. So the actual money supply is quite a bit larger than this. We don't know exactly how large because it's done based on loaning money out. But the base money supply, the money that the government is, as a matter of policy, has quadrupled since 2008, according to their own figures here. So that's why we have it. Well, I suppose that's why we have a strong dollar. But
so how does this all work with Bitcoin? Why? The $1 million question I want to know is why is it going down?
why is the price of Bitcoin going down?
I have my theories, but I think it would be. I mean, I don't know if that was where you're going, but that
No,
was
we're talking
interesting
about
to
price.
discuss about what are the factors right now.
Let's go back to here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inflation.
That's because that's what I'm pinning it to. I have all my money in Bitcoin. I don't have anything else at all. So it's rather a bit scary at the moment.
You know, we've seen.
Oh, sure. Yes. Well, I mean, it's definitely piquing my interest because Imagine if all the money you had in the world halved in value. It's kind of interesting experience to go through in about 4 months.
You have a little pucker factor
no,
going on
exactly.
there?
Like my Bitcoins are behaving like
rubles.
Exactly, like rubles. I have rubles at the moment, and I'm annoyed with them. Yeah, the main thing that I'm not getting rid of them because I still don't see anything better. I don't like the other options.
Hey, fellas. Welcome.
Well, I mean, how's it comparing to Litecoin, for example?
It pins, it matches. They're like basically it's like silver. It's gone back to silver and gold with Litecoin and Bitcoin. The ones that behave differently, the other cryptocurrencies that behave differently to Bitcoin, Litecoin, are basically NXT, BitShares, and especially Ripple. Ripple over the last 2 months has gone for, or 3 months has gone from being worth about $30 million to $500 million. Ripple is exploding.
Well, Ripple has been adopted by the small to mid-sized banks in the United States as a clearinghouse mechanism outside of the New York financial system. Yes. So, well, among other things, but that is one of the major news stories. We don't cover it too closely here. We haven't talked about it too much here, but
and Ripple is not based on proof of work. Proof of work is basically the factor that brings in the inflation. That's why we have inflation in the Bitcoin world, because that proof of work consumes about $1.5 million of electricity every day for the Bitcoin network, and that releases new Bitcoins into circulation, creates selling pressure as they release into circulation, which is continually depressing the price of Bitcoin. Proof of stake, which is well, actually it's actually something different. It's
well, let's talk about, you asked about the price of Bitcoin. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, well, that's what I was tying back to, because literally this new one, Ripple, which is exploding, doesn't have the energy consumption. There's no energy consumption used to maintain the network. And if we look at the main cause of inflation in the Bitcoin network, it's the energy use. So we might be seeing competitor technology that does some similar things, but doesn't have some of the flaws of Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, what you're...
I mean, in terms of how much money is coming into Bitcoin as a percentage of its what's in circulation, how does that compare to what's going into dollars as a percentage of its circulation?
Could you say that again?
Well, like, looking at the graph you looked at earlier, with 2008, the dollar, how much it went 5 times in 4 years or something like that. Bitcoin is not inflating by anywhere near as much as the dollar. So,
no, but it's a very different sort of inflation. Something that we've never seen before. It's like transparent inflation.
Bitcoin grows at a steady rate. So there's 25 new Bitcoins every 10 minutes. So the supply of Bitcoin, the greater supply of Bitcoin, which creates the selling pressure, happens at a known rate, right? Which is not the case with the Federal Reserve. When the Federal Reserve has their open market committee meeting, and you get the minutes several weeks later, and you don't get the actual transcript for 5 years or something like that. And these things happen behind closed doors, and you don't know what's happening with the supply of the regular fiat money supply. With cryptocurrency, and this is, I mean, I don't know what the case is with Ripple and some of the others, but with Bitcoin, it happens at a predictable rate. It's written into the system how it works. So it's known, if you get into the mining business, you know that there's going to be such and such a number of Bitcoins that are entering the system every 10 minutes and therefore every day, week, month, year in, year out. And there are new Bitcoins every day, and that means that the pool of other money that is exchanged for it is going against a larger number of Bitcoin, which would prove to push the price down.
but less significantly than if you push the price of dollars down.
Well, well, dollars work in a fundamentally different way, so it's hard to compare.
Well, there's an energy cost to produce $1 as well. It's called government. All that wasted bureaucracy is the cost that supports the current system.
Yeah.
And that's a lot harder to estimate in a in a dollar figure than the energy cost of the Bitcoin network per day, which is very simple to estimate. The reason why it has a constant depressing effect on price is because in mining, it's almost at the moment there's almost no money in it. So the miners that have invested $20,000, it's become very similar like gold. Satoshi's prediction was very accurate. If you buy $20,000 of mining hardware, and no one wants to buy mining hardware right now. I've been trying to sell some for the last 5 months. It's been horrible. No one wants to buy mining hardware now because the price is so low. And if you're mining it, it costs you about, say, for every $100 you spend on electricity, even in a place with really low electricity in the world, you can sell the Bitcoins you earn for $100 of electricity for like $110 or something. Yeah, so these people, in order to keep their machine turning, they're not using it as currency. They literally become miners. They take it straight to the exchange and sell it immediately. So this is just constantly releasing supply and at the price of electricity.
But there's also, we've seen, I'd say 2014 was the year of merchant adoption. BitPay released figures, over 40,000 merchants accept Bitcoin as payment. And if those merchants, if they're using the BitPay service, they're probably converting at least a portion of their Bitcoins back into fiat for every purchase. And we've seen Expedia come on board, Overstock.com, Dell Computers, and if every time you buy a Dell converts those Bitcoins to fiat, then it creates downward selling pressure on the price. And all year long, we've seen big and small merchants come on board. The most latest is Microsoft. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But what I wanted to talk about, just to, we can keep talking about this, but we've seen this before. If you go back to 2011 and 2012, this is what the world looked like after the first spike. We went up to like $26, and then we bumped along for quite some time before we saw the next spike. And if you're living life right in here, for months on end, you're bumping along at $2, $5. You might wonder if the whole game was over, right? But this is why they call it the honey badger of currencies, because as long as it doesn't die, it comes back to life eventually. And if we just wait long enough, and I would say, if we have another sovereign debt failure, or there's some other bail-in, or some other news that causes the people who don't think about it all the time, like us, the regular people, when they pick their head up from Kim Kardashian or whatever they're reading on Yahoo News and say, "Oh, my money's at stake," then we could see a different situation. I'll talk about it now just because we're in it. But there's an article here that talks about even though the price is down, the popularity is undeniably up, right? If you look at the Google search volume, this is just this looks like the price graph, but this is the Google search graph. This is Google Trends, and this is people searching for the term Bitcoin. And when you have a price spike, a bunch of people look at it, and then when something happens in Cyprus, a bunch of people look for Bitcoin. And but over time, you can see that the sustained level of search is way above. Even when there was a sensational story about Bitcoin and Silk Road, the spike of interest, when it was headlines, you can buy drugs online with Bitcoin. Oh, what's Bitcoin? Like right now, every day, people are searching more for Bitcoin than did when we had that sensational story. So there's more and more people learning about Bitcoin, more and more people. I learned about Bitcoin in 2011. I didn't buy until a year later. And I'm a technology person. I'm interested in financial tech, and I was like really interested in it, but I didn't buy it until later than I wished I had. But all
Facebook.
Pardon me?
What is the graph of Facebook?
You mean the shares?
No, the
Oh.
search. You know, just go-
Oh.
I don't know. Well, people searching for Facebook. Let's see. 2007. I first heard about Facebook in
That
2007,
seems like a nice bell curve.
and
It's dying.
Yeah.
this is
Plateau.
There's nobody left who doesn't know.
yeah. It's
Yeah, and all the people that do know what it is don't want it. Like, they either want it or they don't.
how,
People will just, I need to go to Facebook.
how about remove Facebook? Let's see how that.
Google Trends is awesome.
Delete Facebook.
Do you know what the password is for members?
You guys have your Mac.
Here's a search and remove Facebook. That's this must be like when they realized they were giving stuff to the NSA. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a fun tool. Take a look at it.
That's really cool.
But I'll remind you that the transaction volume in the last year has gone from around 60,000 every day to around 90,000. So it's being used. Bitcoin is being used. It's being moved around. It's being used in commerce, and we've seen a 1/3 jump over the course of a year in the number of transactions. I think that's great news. The number of bitcoins that are in the world have not been diluted by anything more or less than what you agreed to over the course of the year. So the number of total bitcoins is not volatile, even though the price is.
Yes, and totally predictable for the next 100 years.
Yes.
Actually,
So
to infinity.
that's a great thing. That's a great thing.
Is that transaction growth being driven by anywhere specifically geographically, like Europe or the US or
The transaction graph,
growth?
the growth graph. If you look at the Google Trends, you can. Where did I go? Here we go. You can see where it's being searched for the most.
Not that.
No?
Because that's for removing Facebook.
Ah, yes. Let's go back to Bitcoin. If you're in Estonia, you're all about the bitcoins. Yes.
Iceland's the interesting one then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had Aurora going.
Iceland's an interesting thing to watch, country to watch, because they indicted their bankers. They're the only geography where they held the bankers to account.
They are the only energy independent nation, really.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I knew
Really?
they had lots of geothermal.
Wow, that's interesting. That's just something. isn't it?
They're culturally homogeneous, and they've got their own source of energy. That's quite interesting.
Uh-huh.
And they're small, they're tiny.
Is that why they acted rationally when?
Yes, yes.
Maybe they stopped being dependent on fossil fuels and energy.
What's the significance of being culturally homogeneous?
Huh?
What's the significance of being culturally homogeneous?
Agreement?
Just easy to move things
Easy
forward.
to get consensus.
Yeah.
You can map the whole genome of the society back to the people and then look at variations as it's one genetic pure pair of humans.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit, guys, and talk about a little bit of local news. At the end of January, we've got the Inside Bitcoins event happening in Singapore. If anyone's interested in going, we're taking names to go as a group. If we go as a group, we can buy every ticket for about 1/3 the price as a full ticket. So if you're interested in getting into the group, just send me a private message, and yeah, we'll.
Suntec's a nice exhibition center. Have you
Yeah,
been there before?
I've never been there.
It's
No.
really, really nice. Yeah.
It's going to be fun. There's lots of interesting speakers. I'm especially interested in the Ron Jose from Coins.ph, who's doing a lot of work with remittance in the Philippines. He's speaking, but it should be. Also Rick Shreves, our own local Rick Shreves, who runs CoinAcademy.co, will be speaking at the event as well. So it's going to be good stuff. Also in local news, we had the Bitcoin Film Festival on Saturday. I've got a little one of the little clips to show you from the festival, which is pretty cool.
In September of 2014, a group of Americans traveled to Bali, Indonesia in search of anyone willing to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. Food, shelter, or anything to sustain their leisure. What they found was, not only does this community exist, but there is also a true connection that is shared through their belief in Bitcoin.
Okay, at least you come back.
This is life on Bitcoin Island.
So those are the guys. Those are the guys from Funkhouse Media. They are documentary filmmakers. They're traveling all over the world, trying to, well, mostly making good movies, but also interested in Bitcoin and the role it plays for international travelers and adventurers. And we did a Meet the Filmmakers segment at the event, and we had a packed house. I don't know if you can see that there. We had so many people come to the event that we had to turn some away. Nope, that's not Rudy. It looks like Rudy, doesn't it? That's not him. But this is during the Meet the Filmmaker segment, and we had a lot of Chinese in the audience, so we had some real-time translation. It was quite the international affair. I got another shot of the lobby. You can see, I don't know if you've ever seen the Paradiso lobby, that jam-packed. I think they ran out of gelato. Anyway, it was a great event, and yeah.
The filmmakers were actually posted their QR code for funding the film on the big screen. I think that's a first.
Yeah,
Really. I think first.
Well,
it's really cool.
It's kind of interesting that you know, in years past, if you were a filmmaker and you didn't want the support of the audience, what do you have? Like you can ask them to write you a check after the event, or you can, I don't know, tell them your PayPal email address, perhaps.
The other cool thing about that is you could look up their Bitcoin address and see how many people donated and all that. They made $10.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, that's better than nothing.
Yeah, it's so interesting for the whole media industry, this technology, like trying to fund films and things. I looked up the donate address for, what was the documentary we saw, The Rise and Rise of Bitcoin, and they got quite a lot just through putting the QR code at the end of the film. I think it was like, more than $10,000 or something.
Yeah.
That certainly helps a lot for an independent filmmaker.
Well, we had the guys from Change Tip here a while back, and we had some very detailed conversations around the economic models that are possible when you use cryptocurrency. There are all kinds of great content creators out there that are really forced to use an advertising model, which doesn't work if you've got a niche audience, right? Actually, if you're using an advertising model, you're forced to dilute your message, arguably, in order to reach more people. And because the advertising model only works in large numbers. And if it were easy and seamless and frictionless for each one of the folks that enjoy your movie to send you 10 cents, 15 cents, $1 or $2, you could make far more serving a far smaller audience, and that's enabled by these new payment technologies that we have now. So I think it's cool too, JP, that they put it up on the big screen, and even $10. That's, who knows? Some of those Chinese people might have been the ones that gave them some money, and if in days past that would not have been possible. 5 years ago, I could not easily give a Chinese person money, and vice versa. And that's not the case now.
And that Ugandan film was amazing.
Yeah, the Uganda film was cool.
Great.
What's it
Yeah.
called?
I forget. I can.
Yeah, I'd love. I'll download it.
Yeah. I can.
That was
I
just a
can help
short
you out.
YouTube film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think you can find it on YouTube. But the main point was the remittance market in Uganda. Basically getting, allowing someone, I think his sister worked in Boston area, and he was trying to go to school in Uganda, and they could send the Bitcoins easily back to him so he could go to school. It's a cool
Without
story.
Fees from Western Union.
Right.
Or bank transfer of any kind.
One of the things we learned at the film festival is there's a lot of Chinese people that are very enthusiastic about Bitcoin. We had about 300 people from China show up, but we couldn't even get them all in the theater at the same time. I always knew that it was popular in China, but I didn't realize just how much. This is a site called Fiat Leak, and I've been running this for the last, couple hours. And you can see the volume in China. In the last couple hours, they've transacted almost 13,000 Bitcoins on the Chinese exchange, compared with around 4,000 on the various exchanges. See it here. Here is Bitcoin charts. You can, if you take a look at the volume numbers, look at the volume happening at BTC China. This is a 30-day figure. Almost 4 million Bitcoins trading hands. Probably a lot of day trading, and that doesn't mean 4 million in new money. But look at the next closest exchange, Bitfinex in the States. It's just dwarfed. I mean, it's orders of magnitude more happening in China than here.
In here.
then yeah.
Where are we?
I think we do about on a good day about 50 Bitcoins.
Yeah, if you go to bitcoin.co.id, here's the volume, 24-hour volume, 150 Bitcoins.
Bitcoin Film Festival.
Yeah, that's it. It was Oscar the main one pushing for this.
That's what happens when you advertise with Bitcoins in Bali. Yes, it's very powerful.
Oh, look at that red bar. Turn it off. Turn it off. Get it away. Get it away.
Okay, where are we here?
The history of volume. But that's pretty good because, at the start of the year, the volume was nothing like that.
Is the 24-hour volume going up or down?
At the bitcoin.co.id, I know just from personal observation that it was around 20 Bitcoins a day when I first met Oscar, and now 150 I think is quite, yeah. I mean, 5 times growth over less than a year.
Maybe even
7.
I mean, yeah. But I don't know. This one I think you can identify with, Manu. Bitcoin was the worst investment of 2014. But
I do know that.
But it's a good thing. This guy argues that there's so many speculators, and this was he wrote something back in 2013 that the price was low, and at this time back in 2013 we were around $900, over $1,000 per coin on some exchanges. And he was calling that price low at the time, and now he's saying that it's good that the price has come down because it gets rid of some of the speculators. I don't know if I agree or not. I mean, I think the price is going to be volatile while the pool is small. But if you graph volatility over time, it's undeniable the trend. It gets less and less volatile. But on any given day, here's a volatility chart. It can be, in a small period of time, you can be up or down 15% or more. So, but in any case, there are lots of optimists in the Bitcoin community. You can always find a positive spin, even when you're down 65%, which is if you bought Bitcoins a year ago, you're down 65% year over year. But it's a buying opportunity, right? The story's not over yet.
And there are other ways that Bitcoin can be valuable. Ronnie from Seminyak was with us. He's the one who sold the villa.
Yes, I met him.
And actually, he could not possibly have gotten that amount of PR for his villa. I mean, what he would have paid to get the international attention he got was so worth his selling it in Bitcoin, even with, you know,
the
bad
volatility.
timing. Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
You know, when news crews come to your place from all over the world, and suddenly you're on the map from nowhere to yes.
When did you do that?
I think it was
It was like a year ago,
September, maybe.
a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
It was big news. It was the biggest thing sold for Bitcoin to date.
Really?
Yes.
Did you keep it as Bitcoin?
Yes, he is still keeping it as Bitcoin, obviously.
Uh-huh.
And they accept payment for room nights there.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, and when he did it, he didn't know much about Bitcoin. He just
Well, you know,
heard it would be a good idea.
I really respect those companies that choose to keep their proceeds in Bitcoin, right? Not all companies have that luxury because they've got to pay their bills, and if their bills are not in Bitcoin, then they've got to convert, right?
What's proceeds?
Proceeds, the how much they make.
Revenues.
Yeah, the revenues.
Yeah, that was the trick with our company, with the film company. Forced them to give them some bills in Bitcoin. So now there's in and out. So then it makes sense to hold them. And before then, there's no reason to hold them.
Right. Well, you know, someday maybe we can close the loop, and the people that are getting paid in Bitcoin spend their Bitcoins, and there's a closed circuit so that it's not always necessary to get out of the currency, because then you're not subject to the volatility. You know, if Manu could, you know, truly live his life without converting to fiat currency, and those businesses where he was spending his money were not converting right away, then he could care less about the exchange rate.
According to a recent story, Bitcoin is considered fiat currency.
By what definition?
I think some banks were saying Bitcoin is fiat.
Decree by Satoshi.
Oh yeah, right.
Fiat currency.
But then the
Fiat means decree, government decree.
we say
Definitely
this
not
money means is worth
It's
this.
not Australia. But there's different definition for each government, isn't there? Like,
It's a Latin word.
but I mean, at the moment in Australia, it's not a currency, it's a capital item.
Oh, Bitcoin.
Oh.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bitcoin is not a
And there was that senator putting out that thing the other day saying we should redefine it's
Yeah, we've actually.
commodity
Oh,
as well.
and the regulator is defining it as a commodity.
Yeah.
So what's China done then for all that volume? Did they find it as a currency like the UK have, or?
I don't know what the latest in China is. They've kind of doubled back several times.
It's a word. It's a word.
Yeah, it's. I think governments around the world are struggling to define this and figure out what their policy is vis-a-vis virtual currencies, or convertible virtual currencies is what they're calling them. I've actually got some stories on that very thing, so we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So last week we did the year in review. Mine was the amateur version. This is a much more thorough year in review. It's worth a look. It goes month by month. What happened? Overstock.com accepting it, and then in February, Gox failure. That seems like a million years ago. It's hard to believe that just happened.
Yeah.
Less than a year ago, Gox went away.
Seemed like a
For those of you who
long
don't know,
time.
Mt. Gox was the largest exchange for Bitcoins in the world. They handled over 70% of the global volume, and then they went out of business. And a lot of people lost a lot of money. It seems like ancient history, but it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, just take a look. It's like a roll through history. Different merchants getting on board, Butterfly Labs going out of business, and then all the way up to the present where Microsoft has announced they accept it.
What can you actually do with Microsoft? Like,
You can only turn it into credit on their for their digital goods. So it's actually not a very well. I mean, I guess Microsoft's not known for being very cutting edge anymore. Although they're trying to spin it that way, like Like they're
That's
like,
what
we
it
accept
is.
Bitcoin, like we're on the cusp,
We're the cool club.
and all they're doing is using BitPay to allow people to buy Xbox credits, a certain amount of Xbox credits for Bitcoin.
So it's almost like they're pretending to accept Bitcoin.
It is quite a lame kind of foray into for a technology company. It's pretty lame.
Yeah.
I mean,
Expedia was the same. Like I was like, yes, I can get flights through Expedia now, but when I think of flights when I think of Expedia,
it's just domestic hotels.
domestic hotels, and so it's useless to me anyway.
Well, I think they all want to dip their toe. Who knows?
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Did you call them up and say, I'm ready to buy my plane tickets in Bitcoin? What's the problem?
Oh no, that's what I tried first, and then I called Griff. And you just used his credit card. I need to go home. No flight companies will take my Bitcoin. I need some on a credit card.
I'm here for you, Mom.
Every time, I know I can rely on you. Now you just give me your credit card details, and I give you the public key, and I'll just spend and spend.
Done. I got one with Mommy's name on it.
Credit card issued by Griff.
I want the credit card that gives me Bitcoins as rewards points. Where's that one?
There you go. Well, there's business.
All right, sign me up.
Yes.
Here's an interesting story. I forget who in the group posted this one, but Pirate Bay was taken down. And it's interesting, Pirate Bay is often cited as a reason.
Badger of Bitcoin.
Right, yeah. The reason why Bitcoin will not fail is because, well, look at Pirate Bay, look at Tor and BitTorrent and all these things that the government can't stop.
Well, Pirate Bay is just a website. The BitTorrent is a protocol like Bitcoin.
Yeah, they're two different things, but they are both kind of held up on a pedestal as like governments. They can't do anything about Bitcoin because look, Pirate Bay exists, BitTorrent exists, and now they are down. What's that? They're back up. I heard that story, but I couldn't find anything on it.
It should be back up.
And there they are.
And is it another site has resurrected Pirate Bay? Is that the story?
Yeah,
or is
I
there something-
went to old Pirate Bay and it sucked.
I heard it was .ca now in Costa Rica.
Oh yeah. Huh. Well, I had heard about that. I couldn't find the right story on the web. I found this one. It is kind of, the story's not over. When a site like Pirate Bay goes down, yeah, it might happen for a little while, but there are all these things that came before these sites that have come and gone, and yet there are still people on the internet trading files and doing this kind of thing. And I don't know if Pirate Bay's back up, if there's other sites that are just like Pirate Bay that are working, but it's.
I think it's still down.
The writing is on the wall.
Claim the targeting service.
Yeah, but it's different.
There's actually a great, I mentioned this I think last week, but there's a great podcast with Andreas Antonopoulos on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And he talks about the resilience of Bitcoin. As long as two people can communicate in any way, the blockchain will survive. And he talked about all these different ways that you could encode a transaction in a JPEG image. Or he said you could actually represent a Bitcoin transaction with 18 different smileys within Skype, right? As long as people can communicate, they can update the blockchain ledger and exchange value.
That's what I thought the premise was really weird of that previous article. How do you make the jump from Pirate Bay going down to now they're gonna actually be able to destroy the blockchain?
Well,
I don't know how you make
it's like an order of abstraction. Like killing Pirate Bay, which is the best tracker site for BitTorrent, does hurt BitTorrent. It's like instead of attacking the protocol, it doesn't hurt the protocol. The protocol's fine. Blockchain new, but if it becomes harder and harder, it requires people to go through more technological barriers, more inertia to access the technology that inevitably reduces the amount of people that can use it. So it does still.
The article was like, we're going to take down blockchain. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I can only say that they historically they've held up these things as examples of why the blockchain is invulnerable, and these journalists need to make a living and
Yeah.
cause a stir, and but I don't think Pirate Bay or blockchain or BitTorrent or blockchain or their aims will die, even if the sites die or
That's
Bitcoin
built
fails.
into the architecture of the net, going back to the beginning,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
can't close that, can't put that tap back.
Right.
in.
Well, I urge you to check out the podcast because he does it so eloquently. He talks about, he speaks really cogently about the dynamic that as long as two people can communicate, they can update the blockchain. If there's someone behind some firewall in North Korea or Iran or something, some blogger that needs to get paid, that it can happen, and it's very, very, very difficult to stop.
What's the guy's name again? The podcast?
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan
podcast.
podcast. Andreas Antonopoulos.
Okay.
He's got so much good stuff online. But
He's done 3 Joe Rogan podcasts. I think his second one was the best.
he wrote the book quite literally about Bitcoin, the O'Reilly book called Mastering Bitcoin. Really, really strong technically and also articulate representative of Bitcoin, I think. So yeah,
Sure.
check him out.
What's his name?
Andreas Antonopoulos.
If you want to be inspired about Bitcoin, he's the guy.
Yeah, go
Yes,
to
pretty much if you search on Bitcoin.
go to YouTube
Yeah.
He's like,
and
Andreas Bitcoin. That's what I usually say.
yes, that's all you really need is Andreas Bitcoin. If you go to Bitcoin,
Amir Taki's pretty good for inspiration as well.
Yeah.
Amir
Andreas
Taki is another guy.
Antonopoulos.
Amir Bitcoin.
Very Bitcoin, yeah, that'll get into it. Just simplify people's names.
That sounds like a joke.
Here's the guy. Well, Joe Rogan's got a very popular podcast, so he's really reaching a mainstream audience when he makes it on that show. Here's the correct spelling. Andreas Antonopoulos. Greek, nice long Greek name.
I don't think the last 2 should be there.
Here's him talking to the Canadian
what's that
Congress. What other ones are good? This one's quite good. A little bit old. Anyway, check him out. You won't go wrong. You'll be entertained. So just to kind of finish up that topic, there's an article in Telegraph. Soon the internet will be impossible to control, and this was posted by our old friend Peter from South Africa. Hello, Peter, if you're online. But it's quite a nice reminder that the way things are going, there's less and less possibility for central control on the internet and using internet technologies. I mean, we're seeing it over and over again. And the trend is undeniable that as things become less and less centralized, more and more decentralized, everything from mesh nets to decentralized currency to decentralized social networks, it's happening. So I don't know how you feel when you find out that the internet is impossible to control, but I like it.
Yeah.
Other people maybe not so much. You don't know.
But I have no idea what's going on.
Well, actually, it's good. It's
all Chinese
there-
blockchain.
Well, you're probably right. There's probably good things and bad things about it. I mean,
I googled before the Bitcoin festival. I googled and let's see what's in Bitcoin on the internet. And what I found was all the organized criminality. They are using Bitcoin, and I only found African stuff.
yeah. Well,
No.
so
we're actually a mob.
Yes.
So yes, we're the Bitcoin users, as you can see. We're very dangerous individuals. You should be careful.
I know this guy.
Well, that's really interesting. As someone who's not immersed in everything that Bitcoin is, someone who's just doing their first Google search on Bitcoin, that's the impression you get. It's quite interesting that that's, yeah, I can see why that would be frightening.
Which is just not true.
Well, it's money. So, you know, anything that you could use money for, you can use Bitcoin for, and there inevitably you will find people who are using it to scam people. You'll use people who use it to sell child pornography. People use it to buy drugs, or, I mean, that does happen, but it's not because of Bitcoin.
The organized crime, like I met a few guys over when I was in the States, and they're like
Organized criminals?
It's like pretty low on the ladder, small time, but like also very into Bitcoin. And like, yeah, man, as soon as if like a real organized crime unit, and none of them are using it, if they really did start like some like actual real cartels or whatever, the price would go like crazy, because the amount of volumes they have, if they're actually putting there's still no real volume in Bitcoin.
Well, HSBC got caught laundering Mexican drug cartel money, and it was something like $19 billion they laundered.
Yeah.
So that's 4 times the whole Bitcoin economy. So if they were really using it for drugs, then well, the price of Bitcoin would be quite a bit higher.
Yeah, what Bitcoin being used for drugs really means, instead of having to go to a dark alley to go try to buy some, drugs from some sketchy dude with a gun, you can just have it mailed to your door, and you don't have to. Like, drug violence has decreased a lot because of Silk Road and being able to buy drugs and have them sent to your door.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never thought that attitudes towards drugs would change so much in my lifetime. But you've got legalized marijuana in several states in the United States. You've got Silk Road, which is, maybe there's some harm done there with people getting access to drugs, but also people who have an addiction or just choose to use recreational drugs can do so safely. I think that's a good thing.
Less violence is over.
Yeah. But anyway, these are the changes that we're seeing in our lifetime. It's an exciting time to be alive, And there's going to be some good things and bad things, but Bitcoin is not inherently evil. I can assure you.
No.
Yeah.
But like the internet, it can be used in any way.
True. Yes.
But how do you keep control yourself of your money? I'm always grateful that the bank sends me the invoices.
Well, yeah. Well, that's a new thing. Also, a new thing that people are getting used to, because Bitcoin puts the power in the individual, but requires individual responsibility for the funds. So I like to say there's no 800 number for Bitcoin. If you make a mistake, then it's your problem. Actually, that's a good time, I think, to bring up this. This was posted by Roberto. Where is it?
Yeah.
This is a Bitcoin transaction. They tried to transfer 2 Bitcoins, but they actually paid a 1.999 Bitcoin fee and transferred 0.001 Bitcoins to a new address. So little fat finger there, where they lost about $700 mistake. So
a friend of mine did that at Clear Cafe.
Oh, really?
How do you do that? What's up?
He was, he's a bit of an advanced power user. He was doing everything with the command line, and accidentally put it all into fees. Yeah.
Yeah. Oopsie daisy.
If you don't have an set IP, if your outputs are small and your inputs are high, then the difference goes to fees. So you just maybe that's one point in the wrong place, because you have to do it in Satoshi's.
Well, and it depends on the interface. If you're using an interface that you're not super familiar with, you can fat finger it. That's somebody did this. I assume it was inadvertent.
I think he was trying to manually broadcast the transaction.
There's an idea that if you were actually to make a transaction where the fee was something like 25 or whatever the block reward is, there's a paper that suggests that it could actually freeze the network for several hours, because the miners, if they were savvy enough, might want to start not accepting the last mine block when they compete with it to get that fee.
Oh.
And so there's a scenario where they suggest that you can actually freeze the network for several hours if someone was to send you really high.
What's the paper called?
I can't remember.
Yeah, out there.
Huh. Fascinating. But back to your point, it's still possible to make a mistake,
Yeah.
and so it is a little bit scary for regular users. That's the state of the Bitcoin universe right now, and that's why there's so much venture capital money moving into this space so that they can make it more user friendly for more users. Lots of people are working very hard to make this easier, make it more user friendly, make it less error prone. But we're not there yet. Someone posted, I think it was Will posted, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is why Bitcoin is not ready for your grandma or not ready for prime time. And he's kind of right. I mean, I'm a big Bitcoin fan, but sometimes I do get nervous when I introduce it to people because the tools are a little bit rough around the edges.
Yeah. It's scary to give it away to somebody when they don't know enough to be just throwing it away almost. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, there goes $1.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you attach a fee to any transaction that you submit, and that's a way to reward the participants. There's tens of thousands of computers all over the world participating in this Bitcoin experiment, and there's an incentive to participate because people pay a small amount, a small fee, usually between 2 and 6 cents, to send any amount of money. Yeah, not yes,
Yeah.
yes. Presumably this was a mistake.
Yeah.
So. All right, we're almost out of time, folks, but let's see if we've got just a few more topics to talk about. We already talked about this a little bit already, and we talked about how when new vendors accept Bitcoin, it can have the opposite effect of what you might think on the price. Microsoft adds Bitcoin payments for Xbox games and mobile content. They're really just, it's interesting because it's so funny how people spin things, but it's a very uninteresting implementation of Bitcoin. It's basically a non-news event. They flipped a switch with this BitPay service. They're converting everything to fiat right away. They're not selling any actual items for Bitcoin. You can only convert Bitcoins into money on account with them to buy their digital goods. And this probably took a developer like a couple hours to implement. And then they spin this as like, how did you keep it a secret that Microsoft is going to accept Bitcoin? And you look at what they actually did, and it's like a non-thing.
Probably took 5 hours for a developer and like 12 months of like chief board deliberations and stuff.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes. Where's that note about?
The headlines in a positive way.
Yeah, I think it's got a bump. It has
This
a
is the
quick
brand.
bump. Like the price. I think this actually bumped the price up a little bit.
Yeah, and then other people went and read the article in full, and that's why it's down at 320 now.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, that's we kind of covered that already. This is an article about why the price didn't rally on the Microsoft news. It's basically making the same point that as more merchants accept Bitcoin, the price goes down. This is kind of an interesting story. The BitPay, speaking of BitPay, they bought a bowl game. So this St. Petersburg Bowl is the Bitcoin Bowl, which is kind of interesting. I think it's kind of cool that they named it the Bitcoin Bowl and not the BitPay Bowl. It's kind of a classy move on their part, I would say. And this Florida town is working hard to make their whole town Bitcoin friendly when all these people show up to the Bitcoin Bowl.
Ooh, that's so cool.
So it is kind of a neat thing. There's the beach. We hope that other cities follow Madeira Beach's example in supporting the growth of Bitcoin. For cities that attract international visitors, accepting Bitcoin is a great way to boost sales. That's kind of, this was posted in our group as a kind of a challenge. One of the things we're doing here in Bali is trying to make it a Bitcoin-friendly destination. I think it's a great idea. There's a Bitcoin street in Berlin. There's Bitcoin districts in Amsterdam. It just makes sense that when you know a bunch of Bitcoiners are going to show up, they'll go to a place where they can spend their money.
Of course.
Bitcoin coffee shop.
Yes.
Another story, and this came up already once. New York clarifies Bitcoin transaction, affirming intangible property, which basically means that you don't have the double taxation problem that you have in Australia. They're actually fighting that in Australia. There's another story here. Living room of Satoshi reopens despite burdensome sales tax situation in Australia. They're basically doing some I think creative accounting to get around it, buying their Bitcoins offshore when things are bought online. But check out this story about that. They're finding ways to get around this taxation law, and I think that's what will happen when there is undue regulatory hurdles around Bitcoin. They'll either go open their business somewhere else, or they'll find a way to conduct transactions outside of the jurisdiction. I've talked about this many times. It's called regulatory arbitrage. You go and find the jurisdiction where it's friendly for what you're trying to do, and have a plausible story for the regulators and bureaucracy that shows up knocking on the door to regulate. But it's interesting that they're doing it differently in New York. New York has been notorious in the Bitcoin world as being a bit draconian with their proposed Bitcoin legislation. But now this guy, Benjamin Lawsky, the guy that we've been interacting with for the last couple is on his way out because there's a political changing of the guard happening in New York. We don't know what's happening, what the new regime will look like, but it's kind of encouraging that they're taking a kind of a more dovish step towards Bitcoin in this announcement. Here's the actual proposal. And I highlighted this. The use of convertible virtual currency by a customer to pay for goods or services delivered in New York State is treated as a barter transaction, which means that you're not actually buying or selling something at that moment, and you don't have to pay tax when you buy it and when you sell it.
That's pretty radical.
It's good news.
Yeah. They are also the home of the time banking Ithaca dollar, New York State.
Yeah, is that where they do? And did they get on their case for time banking, or?
No, that's the one place that it's survived and still functions.
Huh. Interesting. Because we had Jem Bendel here, and they were talking about a barter system or a mutual credit system that they implemented in Belgium, and they had to shut it down based on the accountants wringing their hands over the regulatory status of what they were doing. I would have thought
the Ithaca thing is very old. It's like 20 plus years old. So they snuck it in while getting this good.
Well, it's interesting when it comes to regulation. There's a great article by one of the founding members of Skype that was talking about how Skype and the regulatory environment that they found themselves in, competing with telecoms companies, is similar to where Bitcoin is now. They were in a race to become useful. So useful that it would be impossible for bureaucracy to come and shut them down. Sounds like that's the case with Ithaca, where people are used to using it, so you can't come in and shut it down after the fact. I don't know where we are with Bitcoin, if we've reached that critical mass or not.
In Uganda, we have.
Yeah. Well,
or we will.
in the world, I think we might be there, but there's still going to be places where they put their foot down. But it seems like Bitcoin is strong enough where that's actually going to hurt the jurisdictions where they do that, as opposed to the other way around where they hurt Bitcoin. So, all right. Last story of the night. Last week, we posted this about blockchain.info. I think, Griff, you were the one that put it up on the board first. Thank you for doing that. We've been advocating use of this blockchain.info wallet all year long. They have a great service, but they did make a mistake in this case. And I think it's just really interesting to see how the community responded. There is, as I mentioned, there's no 1-800-BITCOIN, right? And there's no 1-800 number for Bitcoin, or there's no toll-free support line for Bitcoin. There's no bank to call. There's no, but the community looks after itself. When something happens, the community rallies and they look after one another, and this is another example of that. Well, first of all, blockchain guaranteed everyone's money. If anyone lost money, they said they're good for it. So that's one thing. But
this is our mistake, so we'll cover it.
Right. But what's even cooler is the guy that stole it is a good guy and has said he will return all of the Bitcoin that he. Yes. So he swept the Bitcoins out of those addresses that were compromised, and then posted publicly that he did this before, some nefarious actor came and did the same thing, and he's happy to return the Bitcoins and is going through the process of doing that. So it's kind of a cool community story. We're talking about 255 Bitcoins. That's a lot of money. Over $100,000 there.
What's a white hat?
White hat is the opposite of black hat. So a good hacker, someone who, well, in this case, he took people's Bitcoins, but he's returning them and saying, I did this so that people would be aware of the problem, not because I wanted to.
And before a black hat would get
Right.
do the same thing.
A black hat, on the other hand, would have kept the Bitcoins and presumably. So, I think this is a really nice note to end on, that the global Bitcoin community looks after one another and has a sense of fairness and justice. Bitcoin itself is a repudiation of what's perceived as an unjust system. The vast majority are fair-minded individuals, people that want to see Bitcoin succeed and a fair money system succeed. After being involved with the folks here in Ubud that show up to these meetings, when we started in February, there was nobody, and over the course of time, more and more people come, and I'd say 100% of the people that show up are these people that have this fair-minded sense of social justice, trying to do good things in the world, and see Bitcoin as a vehicle for that. And I'm just really pleased that that's the case. This is a global example of it, but I see it all the time with the folks that show up in this meeting. And I just wanted to take this opportunity, because it's the last meeting of the year, to say thank you to everyone who has participated very much. It wouldn't be what it is if I was still holding these meetings all by myself. So thank you very much for making it an amazing meeting, an amazing year, and just an amazing phenomenon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll leave it at that, and we'll see you next year.
Gary, I think you should pop up your QR code like at the end of the films.
We'll do it next year. If you're planning to give, save it for next year, and we'll do it then.
Yeah.
Which one?
All right, folks.
Thank you.
What's the what?
It's a secret tab.
Oh, the last tab is, wow, you're good, Ariel. You are observant. Let's take a look. I think it's the coin map. Yes.
What's that sign?
20. These are businesses that accept Bitcoin, and I was going to make the point that we've got 24 businesses in Bali, where there's only 10 in Jakarta.
Way more than Darwin, right?
More than Darwin. We're doing pretty well. Next year,
we beat Australia all
That's
together.
second highest.
next year this is going to be much bigger.
Do we beat Australia all together?
No.
Look, we're you know,
61. Melbourne's the Bitcoin capital. Excellent.
Yeah,
What's,
we're catching up to Sydney.
what's interesting about this map is as soon as someone reaches 100, the dot turns red. So I'm waiting for the first red dot. Like you can see, there's nothing here in this whole part of the world. A red dot in Bali would be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So next
New Year's
year,
resolution.
next year that will happen.
So Singapore doesn't
Singapore does.
41.
They're the regional leader.
There they are.
And Bali's second place in like almost all of
Yeah.
Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Oops.
That's pretty
Whoa.
sweet. It's pretty damn cool.
We can do better.
All right. Thanks for asking, Ariel.
There's a B&B at the tip of South Africa that takes it. Wow.
At Cape Horn or Cape Good Hope?
That is progressive, man. That is crazy.
Wow.
Oh.
That's like Peter's right
Guest house.
now. He just got
Yes,
smart.
at the
He
bottom of the
convinced them
world.
this morning.
That is funny.
That's Tierra del Fuego, right?
I think it's for the ship's going in.
Yeah, it's the only way to Antarctica. You can sleep.
South America. Wow.
I just put my old house up for rent in Bitcoin in Borneo. Probably the only rental option.
Next year, Griff and Ariel are going to be like going right through here, and it's just going to be like a trail of red dots as they work their way down.
Yeah, just to,